Howdy, fellow bodies. Welcome to Dise and Bodily's Voice, an audiobooks podcast. Today, we are reading part 1 of Story's End, a horror novel written by me, your host. Disclaimer: this series is not meant for younger audiences. It is not a family-friendly story. There is gore and violence and strong adult language. If this is something that you're sensitive to, I would recommend skipping to another story. Enjoy. I step over the curb and onto the street, checking both ways before darting across. The recently vacated Gerber tax office stood dark and unwelcome before me. Old lost dog and found cat posters and newspapers were taped to the window, and they fluttered in the early morning bilgewater breeze. I stretch as I rest. This is my halfway mark. The windows are covered in newspaper, hastily taped up. Mr. Gerber was usually a very calm guy, with excellent business skills. The reasons for him closing shop were a mystery to me. Perhaps he got into some sort of legal trouble, and he had to leave the state in a hurry? There goes my imagination. I roll my eyes and step closer to the window, examining the papers curiously as I stretch. I lean in and press my face against the dirty glass, peering into the store through a gap in the Times. Inside is gray, with faint dull sunlight filtering through tears in the paper. Against the far wall, directly across from me, is a desk. It looks quite basic. It had a faux wood desktop with black aluminum sides, about average for nearly every office that existed in the 80s. On the desk is a teetering pile of newspapers and manila folders. I puzzle over what it could be, or rather, why. Why would Mr. Gerber leave all that paperwork lying around? Maybe the location had been purchased, and these papers were the new owners. Both outcomes are likely. As I look around for more clues like the snoop I am, a woman appears next to me. I jump towards the ugly green light pole behind me and scream pathetically. The woman with a tight bun in her dark brown hair watches me, unimpressed. She says something I can't hear over my music. Then she takes keys from her blazer pocket and jabs them into the lock of the door. "Sorry, I didn't even hear you. Is this your shop?" I ask, suddenly very aware and self-conscious about the massive sweat marks on my shirt. I take an earbud out of my ear and pull on the collar of my shirt to try and air it out a bit. My music had been too loud. That is why I couldn't hear her coming. I rub the smooth white earbud with my thumb while I glance at her sweet round face. She would look perfectly pleasant, personality-wise, if she wasn't frowning deeply with a deep crease between her eyebrows, which makes me believe I have annoyed her in some way. Some New Yorkers are just always in a bad mood, you know? Maybe this lady is one of those. "You weren't meant to hear me." The woman wrenches the key in the lock and pushes open the door, then looks me over. "Yes, this is one of the many recruitment stations for Steel Institution." She did not have a New Yorker's accent. This was a little more country sounding. I bet she's from West Side or something. I cock my head. Institution? Is it a school? A college? Is it some sort of school?" I ask, tapping my thumbnail on the earbud I am still holding on to. The woman stepped into the doorway and turns to watch me, holding the door open. "I suppose you could say that. It's a specialty school. But, we teach the basics with some advanced classes for those who can pass," she said tersely, nodding shortly. "Do you have a pamphlet I could look over? I'm interested." Did that just come out of my mouth? I've already been accepted at NYU, which is already a well-known school. Why would I go to a school I've never heard of? Still, I guess it's polite to ask. The woman went inside her office without a word. When she came out, she had a small, glossy pamphlet in her hand. As she hands it to me, she looks me in the eyes. If you're a runner, you might find a place among our specialized sporting students. She smiled sparsely and politely, then handed me a business card. If you have any further questions, call us or visit our website. She then turned on her black high-heeled shoes and swept into the building. I look at the pamphlet for a moment, listening to cars and bicycles whiz by at my back. The woman gave me an uneasy feeling. It was likely just that it was so early in the morning, and my calves are starting to cramp. Gotta keep moving. I look up, tracing the outline of the buildings with my eyes. The sky was getting lighter and lighter. I was wasting time standing here. I put my earbuds back in and began running down the sidewalk once again, holding tightly to the pamphlet I had been given. Once I had gotten home and had showered, I cut a bagel crusted with flax seeds and dropped it into my tiny off-white toaster. While it roasted, I sat at the round glass table in my dining area and unfolded the orderly pamphlet. At the Steele Institution, it is our mission to make continuous contributions to the scientific field and providing specialized education to each student, addressing their unique abilities and utilizing them. My bagel exploded out of the toaster, and I leaped to grab the halves off the counter. My toaster is always excited to get rid of whatever is in it. So excited, in fact, that it often ejects the food onto the counter. In the case of an Eggo waffle, which is very light, it sends it directly to the ceiling. It's a quirky toaster, not broken. I sit down at my table again and continue to read. So far, it sounds pretty great. Our instructors have been carefully selected to teach the specific classes, and our medical lab is outstanding and unique to the entire country. I look up. I bet they have a good health insurance program, I say through a mouthful of bagel. I find my answer in the next paragraph. We offer all of our students a superior level of health care. We also offer free meals every day, housing, public showers, free uniform, and equipment upon acceptance to our institution. Our school is government funded and therefore free of charge to all students who qualify. I frowned. Ugh, public showers would kind of suck, but it's a small price to pay for free education. I finished reading the pamphlet. At the end, it said in bold letters, "Tours are not available." The pictures made it look great, even though much of it was under construction. I called my mom and explained what had happened, discussed costs and other opportunities. We decided to wait a few days before making a final decision. The Steele Institution seemed too good to be true. It's a slow week, and I'm dying on the inside. I hate it when the days drag on and on. It would be better if they sped past as if it was a dream. I call the lady a few days later and ask when I can come in and submit an application. We don't use that system. We will, however, require you to be ready for knowledge and personality testing and a physical exam. All this is done at the location that you were before. The woman sounded much friendlier now that it was just after lunch. Okay, when can I take these tests? I ask, readying a pen and paper. Anytime, just walk in. Please also be aware that you are not guaranteed a place at the institution. The results of your exam will determine your acceptance. I nodded and wrote that down. I could come in tomorrow morning. The woman made a surprised sound. Are you certain? Yep, I'll see you then. Goodbye. I looked down at the card, searching for her name. Miranda. I finish, then hang up. It's 9:30, around the time that I call my boyfriend to talk to him before bed. I rush to get my pajamas on, then stretch out on the couch. I tell him all about the institution, and he tells me about a massive storm that swept over the beach that day. They had to evacuate all the beaches on the island, and all the buildings were crammed with sweaty tourists because the ferries couldn't leave the docks due to the storm. Wow. Sounds like a crazy day to be a patrol officer, I sighed, rolling onto my stomach with a grunt. He laughed. Tell me about your day? He asked in his deep, husky voice. I smiled. Well, I quit working at the frame shop. James was bullying me again, and I was sick of it. Atta girl, he cheers, making a thumping sound. He was probably banging his fist on something, as he did when he was excited. I laugh. So you know that institution that I texted you about? I'm going to apply tomorrow. If I don't get in, then I'll go to school at NYU, like I planned to. Way to take charge, babes. I have to go to bed, though. I have a long day tomorrow. Good night, Brantley. I chirp, sitting up and getting to my feet wearily. Night, Story. Love you. I pause. Then hang up. I head to my room and slide into bed. I squirm in my seat at the office where I met the lady. In a week, it hadn't changed at all. The desk was still there, still a pile of papers. They did at least bring a nice chair from the back for me to sit on when I arrived. Sitting doesn't make me any less nervous. Miranda was sitting at the desk, staring at me. It was like she didn't care that there were stacks of paperwork probably needing to be done. Or maybe I was just that annoying to her. I feel instantly awkward. Maybe I should just leave. I haven't invested anything more than a little thought and time. It's not too late to back out. As I look over her desk, I find a black mug almost hidden by papers. On it read, "A yawn is a silent scream for coffee." Why do you insist we meet in the morning? It's detestable. Miranda said sluggishly, her eyelids closing as her head dropped to the desk with a bang. I stand up and rush to her, worried that she needed help. But she was sound asleep. Maybe she's more of a night owl. Miss Wilson, come on in, a man with oval glasses and a kind face says, looking down at a clipboard. I step towards him. Is she okay? She just fell asleep. The man, who was dressed like a doctor, looks at me, and immediately I feel like I am in some kind of danger. Perhaps it's only because he looked at me as though I was dinner. He blinked, and the feeling went away as he laughs it off. Miranda is a bit of an owl and such. She doesn't like things. Oh. Well, that makes sense. Come with me. We will have you take the knowledge test first, he explains kindly, leading me down a short hall and taking a right into a small room. There were a few other people. Some looked confident, while others looked as though they were going to melt where they sat. Find a seat. You'll find a test and a pen on your desk. Pencils are not allowed. Phones are also not to be used, he says briskly, then walks away as I take my seat. I look around the room at the people. There were many young men who looked studious, or geeky. It's a fine line you walk when you wear pocket protectors and have messy, shaggy hair. There were a few girls who were athletically built, like me. I shake my head and look down at my test. The first question was, did Abraham Lincoln cut down the apple tree? I squint. There's no multiple choice, just 3 blank lines. No, it was a cherry tree. However, that is a fallacy. In other words, whether or not it was a cherry or an apple tree, it didn't happen. Confident with my answer, I moved on. The other questions are similar, with math questions spattered here and there. Either I'm a genius, or this test was easy. I looked up. There are now only 2 other people here. I hadn't heard any of the others leave. I shrug and finish the test. The doctor from earlier beckons me from the doorway, and I get up, bringing the test with me. That was a piece of cake. Does everybody get the same test? I ask, handing it back to him. He looks at me with those predatory eyes again, then takes the test and clips it to his clipboard. No. Everybody gets a different test. However, they all have 5 questions that matter, he replies, pushing his glasses up and leading me to another room. There was a table and some other medical equipment. I sat on the table and waited for his instructions. I've been through a few physical exams. None of them were this rigorous and thorough. Why do the physicals matter so much to you guys? I panted, after having to jog in place for 3 minutes straight. The doctor removed the shining stethoscope from my chest and writes some numbers down on a chart that lies on his clipboard. We want everyone to be in top physical condition at all times for their health and others. I nod and lean on the wall that I had to do wall sits against a few minutes ago. I'm exhausted. He tested everything from my core to my hand strength. Are we good here? I ask, wiping swits of bead from my forehead. You're all set, Miss Wilson. Do you need me to walk you out? He asked, setting the clipboard on the desk in that examination room and turning his full attention to me for the first time today. Chills race up and down my back, and suddenly I begin to sweat and breathe a little faster. I'm not afraid of him, but the way he looks at me. I feel afraid, and I'm only afraid of a few things. Doctors are not one of them. He smiles and raises his eyebrows, making it clear that he expected an answer. I'm all right, thank you. I stammer and hastily leave the room. Once away from his hungry eyes, I'm fine. When I get outside, I'm alarmed to find that I had 56 texts and 10 missed calls, not to mention that the sun was sinking behind the skyscrapers. It was 10 a.m. when I got here. How did time pass by so fast? I start to power walk back home, breathing in the warm and sticky evening air hungrily. I hope I don't have to go back to the building. I'd go crazy in there. When I finally drag myself into bed, I fall asleep as my head hits the pillow. It's not as though I'm exhausted. I'm merely tired of having my eyes open. There weren't any windows anywhere in that building, and the lack of sunshine totally exhausted me. Before I knew it, I was boarding a big white bus with about 20 other people, some older than me and others younger. It was understood that we were going to the Institute. I look forward to getting to study with all of these people. The neat thing is that the school is government funded for the most part, so it draws in all sorts, from all kinds of places. I shove my lime green backpack in the overhead compartment and slump down next to this beautiful African-American woman. She looks to be about my age, maybe slightly younger, with round brown eyes sparkling with anticipation. She sticks out her hand and smiles with wonderful straight teeth. I smile and take her hand to shake it. Hi, I chirp, pumping together with her. We slowly let go, and she raises her eyebrows. My name's Tulsa Whitcomb, she explains, with a twangy Midwest accent. I laugh and introduce myself. I'm Story Wilsonne. Interesting name. Where are you from? Tulsa asks, glancing out the window as the bus starts moving. I'm from Goshen, actually, I explain, smiling a little at this outgoing woman. How about you? Broken Bow, Nebraska. Wow, I gasp. You came a pretty long way. What for? I'm curious why somebody would come all the way from Nebraska for school. Granted, people switch states for school all the time, even countries. But I had never met anybody crazy enough to do that. I, for one, don't like traveling. Tulsa leans in towards me and gives me a wary look. I have a terminal illness, and it keeps getting worse. The doctors can't help me, but I heard that I have a shot at being normal with the medicines at the Institute. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope they can help you. How did you get in if you were sick, though? They had me go through extensive physicals. The bus lurches over a speed bump and jostles everyone aboard. Sorry, the driver calls out, leaning closer to the wheel. I can mask for a couple minutes at a time, Tulsa admitted, looking down at her knees. I shake my head. How are they supposed to help you if they don't know what's wrong? Tulsa shrugs. It's hope. We spend the rest of the ride talking and laughing. Tulsa is a delightful person. I really like her. I even add her to my phone contacts. Anyways, Tulsa is the most wholesome and happy person I have talked to in a long time. I can tell we're going to be good friends at the Institute. Mind if I ask how old you are, Tulsa? I ask, after we had stopped for the restroom and food at a travel station somewhere between Liberty and Binghamton. It was plenty dark now, and the other passengers were starting to quiet down and try to sleep. 23, she whispers, adjusting a travel pillow under her neck and looking at me sideways so she didn't move the pillow from its perfect position. Nice. We're pretty close in age. Hey, would you mind if I called my mom real quick? And my boyfriend. Tulsa's eyes snapped open. She looked at me sideways again. You have a boyfriend? Her eyes lit up with mischief and curiosity, which I somewhat expected her to do. Yes, I breathe, starting to blush a little. Show me! Tell me everything! She squeaks excitedly, smiling broadly. I sigh. I have to call them first. Then I can talk. Okay. I take out my phone and call my mom, who goes to bed much earlier. Hey, Mom, I said in a hushed tone, looking up at the blue lights that line the overhead storage area. It made everything else look ghostly. I listened to her talk and tell her where I was and that I was fine. Once she knew, she told me my love you good nights. Then I tried to call Brantley, but he didn't pick up, which was fine. I couldn't have an actual conversation with him here anyways. So, tell me about this boyfriend, Tulsa gushed, drawing out the last word. I sigh, then begin to tell her random things about him. His name is Brantley Kinsley, and he's a lifeguard. Story Kinsley, Tulsa interjected, pulling her baby blue fleece blanket over her nose. My eyes widened. No. It's not like we're going to get married or anything. I hiss in a panic. Why not? Seems like you're perfect for each other, she muttered, giving me a sneaky look. I don't reply. I do tell her good night and give her a hug. I'm not mad. I just don't want to fantasize and get my hopes up about Brantley. I like him, maybe love him, but there may come a day when he won't love me anymore. And I'm not going to risk getting hurt. Not in a million years. I look around at the sleeping people being jostled around by the movements of the bus and wonder what they were dreaming about. What they were thinking about. What brought them here? I eventually think myself to sleep. When the bus lurches to a stop, it nearly catapults me out of my chair. I wake up with a gasp and look over at my new friend, just to make sure that she's okay. She seems as surprised as I am, watching me with her big brown eyes. We both mouth what we were thinking. What is going on? Outside the windows, it is dark and impossible to see out of the sides. But if we leaned out into the alley of the bus, we could see out the front of it. Nearly everyone was awake now except for some heavy sleepers here and there. The driver grabbed his loudspeaker and explained the situation for us.
We have arrived. They do not open the gates until the morning, and only for a few hours, so we will park here until the sun rises. Sleep tight,
the driver says wearily, setting the speaker down and leaning back in his chair with a loud grunt. Tulsa and I tried to see beyond the black iron gates that the headlights illuminated, but the best we could make out was a very faint, craggy outline where the stars vanished. We're both anxious to see where we would be spending our next 6 months. The pictures only showed the inside, in detail, and only a few rooms. I pull out my phone and bring up the pictures of the building. They looked kind of old, and the copyrights read that they were registered in 2002, so it was more than likely that the interior had been updated in the past 15 years, since the photos had been put on the website and the pamphlet. When the sun finally rises enough to illuminate our surroundings, we are amazed and terrified at the same time. Beyond the shiny black iron gates is a tall, imposing building, a stereotypical location of a horror film involving haunted, insane asylums. 2 brown towers rise into the lightening sky. The tops of them are a blue-green color like oxidized copper, and the building has an almost French feel to it. All of the windows are eerily dark, and the grounds are in mild disrepair. Thank you for listening to part 1 of 12 of Story's End. If you enjoyed what you've heard, please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Join us next time for part 2. Have a lovely evening.